My name's Edward Fernan with Steele Associates. I'm tremendously honoured to have the opportunity to welcome you all here this evening. This has been a long time coming, and as some of you may know, this is Australia's first green roof terrace. So we'd like to all welcome you here tonight to the opening of Australia's first green roof terrace. If you haven't already had an opportunity to go around the property and have a look at the plaques on the wall, you'll see all the sustainability aspects that Oliver and the team have all put into the property. So I'd welcome you to have a look at that. We've also got some very special guests here this evening. We've got the Planning Minister, the Honourable Rob Stokes, here, which we're very grateful to have him here this evening. So thank you very much, Rob, for turning up. We've got Robert Koch, who's the councillor at the City of Sydney, so we'd also like to welcome Robert, and Jenny Leong, the member for Newtown, the Greens MP. So thank you very much, Jenny, for coming along as well tonight. But just now like to officially, as I said, welcome the Planning Minister, just to say a few words. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Edward, and thanks, Oliver, so much for the invitation to come along at this really auspicious and significant occasion for architecture, for planning and for development and for community here in Sydney and across New South Wales. I also wanted to acknowledge Jenny Leong, my colleague from the New South Wales Parliament, as well as Robert Koch here representing the Lord Mayor of Sydney. Thank you, Councillor. As well as, most importantly, I wanted to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, to honour them and also to pay those respects and extend those respects to any other Aboriginal people who may be here this evening. I also wanted to acknowledge the presence of the 23rd New South Wales Government Architect in the bicentenary year of the Office of New South Wales Government Architect, and that is Peter Poulet. So they just keep getting better and better, ladies and gentlemen, and 23rd is the best yet. But it's really significant, ladies and gentlemen, being at a house like this, at a home like this, on the occasion of 200 years of public architecture in New South Wales. The reason I say it's significant is because we've reached a real crossroads in planning for the future of our city here in Sydney and also other cities and towns across New South Wales. The growth trajectory that Sydney is facing is literally quite frightening. And if we don't do anything about it to plan more consciously and build more thoughtfully, we're going to end up with a city that's bigger but uglier, more congested, more dangerous, less fair, more difficult to get around. So we really need the sort of thoughtful and conscious design that we see here at 88 Angel Street. And that's why it was a great pleasure for me to respond to Oliver's invitation to come along and speak with you this evening, because this development is an exemplar of the sort of thoughtful and conscious architecture and design that we want to see rolled across the fabric of Sydney. Sydney, ladies and gentlemen, extends around 12,000 square kilometres and has around 5 million people. To put that in global context, it's about two-thirds London is about two-thirds the land area of Sydney, yet has about 3 times as many people. So that provides an example of we've got plenty of land, we've got plenty of room, we just haven't used it thoughtfully and consciously in the past, which has led to urban sprawl, uncoordinated urban development that's enormously difficult to service, that limits diversity, that leads to social exclusion and limits opportunities for justice for all of the inhabitants of the city. So we do need to plan more thoughtfully. We do need to live in a more conscious, more considered and denser urban environments. That's why the terrace house and the reinvention of the terrace house for modern living is such an important part of getting density right in a city like Sydney. At the moment, our planning controls that I've observed as a year in this role have led in 2 basic products. our system facilitates the construction of increasingly larger detached homes on increasingly smaller blocks of land, or on increasingly taller and increasingly less personal apartment buildings. What we've forgotten about is the bit in the middle. We coin it the missing middle, because that's the bit where human-centred design can really be focused. So that's why this reinvention of the terrace house for modern day living is so powerful. It provides private outdoor living spaces, it's adaptable for different families, for different circumstances, and can adapt as those circumstances change over time, which is why this is such a powerful exemplar of what can be done and what should be done into the future. But ladies and gentlemen, just to share a little story with you, you might acknowledge that around Newtown you see plenty of exemplars of terrace homes from the era before 1920. And in other suburbs you might see townhouses, as they became known, from the 1960s. But between 1919 and 1962, you don't see terrace houses. And the reason for that was that local councils basically outlawed them. So it opened up a 50-year gap in supply when terrace houses were seen to be associated with slums, so they were banned in councils across Sydney. So we've got a 50-year supply gap in one of the most adaptable and resilient forms of housing that we need to fill. And this is an exemplar of how we can do that. I want to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, by not just praising Oliver and his team. This is the culmination of 20 years of Oliver's life work to date, and he should be justly proud of what he has achieved. And it is awesome to reflect on what he now can stand to achieve over the rest of his career, and may there be many more decades of his innovation and his creativity to come. He's an extraordinary man. I've only had the opportunity to meet him this evening, but already his enthusiasm is just electric and just amazing. So I look forward to getting to know Oliver more into the future, and certainly to read about his projects and to celebrate with him as he's able to achieve amazing things going forward. But ladies and gentlemen, there was a thinker, a guy called William Morris, who was one of the founders of the arts and craft movement and it started in Britain, and it was countering the industrial revolution at the time. And he was saying we need to, rather than mass produce everything and not be conscious of where it comes from, we need to be more conscious and celebrate craftsmanship and rediscover these sorts of things in our architecture, and celebrate local materials and celebrate local vernacular. And he said that increasingly the questions we need to ask before making any acquisition of an item, a household item, or a property or a home is it beautiful and is it useful? And be conscious in our purchasing decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, when we look across Sydney, I fear these are not the questions we've been asking. Instead, we've been asking, is it big and is it cheap? We've got to start asking the right questions. This is an exemplar of a development and of a developer and a designer who has asked the right questions. And I think we all agree that he's come up with an incredible answer. And this is the answer, this is so much of the answer of the sort of style of development we need to see across Sydney, so that as the city gets bigger, we can ensure that it becomes a better and a fairer place for everyone. Thanks a lot.
I'd like to thank the Minister very much for his words, and thank you very much for his presence this evening. Now I'd like to introduce the man of the moment, the architect, the builder and the developer who has brought this all to you, and he's very excited to have you all here this evening. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Oliver Steele.
Thank you very much to Mr. Stokes for a very educational speech about the 50-year gap. Even the terrace house suffers the vagaries of fashion. And thank you very much for your kind words. Thanks so much everyone for coming here tonight. It's fabulous seeing the house full of people who aren't wearing tool belts. So I would like to thank the Honourable Jenny Leong for attending tonight, and thank the New South Wales Police Sniffer Dogs for not attending tonight. And Councillor Robert Koch, thank you very much for coming, and Peter Poulet, the Government Architect, Katie from Green Building Council, Suzanne from ASBEC, Michael from HIA. It's a great honour to have so many people I respect in the industry come and recognise this development tonight. And thank you, Nat, who provided the funding. Thank you, Lee, for coming and visiting. And Aaron from Case 22, who provided this beautiful original furniture, and Mark from Eclipse, who provided the handmade dining table. We didn't want to fill it with just generic stuff. And of course to my mother Virginia for all the support over the years, especially through the hard times, and to my father Jeremy, who would have been so happy to be here tonight if he was still with us. He saw the dream grow over 2 decades, and he would have loved to be here. And thank you very much to Patcher and Presert for making the trip to come, and for Ed for all his help in getting things moving, and the brilliant work and energy they put in. And of course everyone who's worked on the site. Has been an absolute army of people here giving their sweat, blood and tears. Doug, Damien, Jason, Nathan, Steve, Jamie, Andrew, Joe, Michael, everyone. Incredible skill, dedication, and most of all for sharing the vision and putting up with pulling ceilings down and putting them an inch higher, and I was known as the guy that comes along and says what's wrong, but thank you everyone for getting it so right for tonight. You guys have done an incredible job. Especially to Brian and Ben, who've done midnight shifts the past week, and Ben, who's been our site manager, has done an incredible job of keeping it all together, and he's going to North Korea after this to sort out the diplomatic situation. Just on the subject that this development is really about, because this is really about something. What we have is a world in crisis. The crisis we are facing, I will call eco-fatigue. We've all been hearing about climate change and global warming and sustainability for years now, and yet nothing happens. And it goes on, you get sick of hearing about it, and it just becomes another buzzword. But now we are starting to see things happen. Month after month, year after year, records are being broken, they're tumbling. But we are also starting to see that economic activity and growth is being decoupled from carbon emissions. Over the last 2 years, economic growth has continued globally, carbon emissions are starting to plateau. So that does show that economic activity, which is essentially a measure of human activity, and environmental health aren't necessarily, of course they're linked, they're not necessarily a complete correlation. So what this is really about is demonstrating that within the structures that we have in place, in this case within a conventional speculative development business model, you can, and we are now doing things to do things differently, to decouple economic and human activity from damaging environmental impacts, which we all know what's going to happen, where there's not a lot of time left. And it's a real honour to be a part of what is a huge movement in the property and development industry to change the mindset, and it is happening. People who didn't take that sort of thing seriously are really now starting to take it seriously, and this is about demonstrating that you can take it seriously. It doesn't have to be a charity, it's just business as usual. So on that note, I would also like to thank most of all my lovely, wonderful, patient, supportive wife Anna for helping me follow this happening. And thank you most of all for not giving birth tonight. Really appreciate it. on that note, thanks everyone for being here. It's really great to see you all here. I hope you enjoy milling around and meeting each other and having a drink. And talk to you soon.
Well, thanks everyone for coming again, and feel free, as Oliver said, to grab a drink and enjoy the night. Thanks for coming.